Hungary's right-wing government under Viktor Orban is to call a referendum on the European Union's mandatory quotas on migrants. The Prime Minister said the vote, the first of its kind in Europe, would be a major test of European democracy. The Hungarian government has already rejected the plan, under which it would have to take a share of 120,000 migrants to be relocated across the continent. Orban told a news conference that nobody had asked the European people whether or not they supported mandatory quotas. "I'm convinced that we Hungarians feel," he said, "that the government is responding to public sentiment now. We think that introducing resettlement quotas for migrants without the backing of the people equals an abuse of power." Hungary's gained notoriety for the steel fence built along its southern border to keep migrants and refugees out. The policy's now been adopted by other Balkan countries. No date for the referendum was announced, but it's thought it may take place in the autumn, subject to parliamentary approval. There was no immediate reaction from the EU executive.
Migrants and refugees arriving at the Belgian town of Le Pan on the border with France are turned back by police. It comes amid French plans to evict thousands of people from the camp known as the Jungle near Calais. Fearing a potential influx of UK-bound migrants, Belgium has this week reintroduced border controls.
We want to stay here. Yeah, you don't want to go. We want to leave this country. Yeah, to England. But they don't let us to go. No, England. Let's go Belgium. No, another country, What do we do? What should we do here?
Up to 290 Belgian police officers have been deployed at crossings with France. The Belgian government has said the controls will last as long as necessary. The move is the latest blow to free travel in Europe's Schengen zone. An increasing number of EU member states, most recently Austria, have been tightening their controls, introducing tougher checks, turning people back, saying they just can't take in any more.
Amnesty International says the United Nations has systematically failed to uphold human rights and international law, and the Syrian conflict is one example of the human consequences. Pointing the finger at the Assad regime and Russia, it says civilians have been attacked without any accountability, and the UN system has failed to protect those fleeing the scourge of war. Its annual report speaks of a global assault on freedom as governments pursue short-term interests and security crackdowns.
Amnesty International has consistently documented and condemned human rights abuses by armed groups, Islamic State, Boko Haram, YPG and others. But the actions of these groups cannot be used as a justification for any government to themselves violate international human rights or humanitarian law for short-term gain. Whether it's the US using mass surveillance, or Russia using the foreign agent law, or Turkey or Nigeria using their security forces on their own populations.
Amnesty also blames the EU for failing to find a humane response to the refugee crisis. Despite search and rescue operations and better humanitarian assistance, it says the focus is still on keeping people out.
The richest bloc in the world, which is Europe, has really not been able to come together and find a sensible, agreed, coherent, safe way in which people can access Europe at a time when they are fleeing from war and persecution. So I would say, on the whole, Europe has failed human rights and failed migrants and refugees.
European institutions and governments are slammed for lacking the courage to tackle Hungary over human rights concerns. Britain is accused of setting a dangerous precedent with plans to replace its Human Rights Act. Amnesty calls on the EU to be much bolder in challenging violations and upholding freedoms in Europe and across the globe.
Relieved residents have been celebrating in Benghazi after Islamist militants were forced out of parts of the eastern Libyan city by forces loyal to the internationally recognized government. The victory for supporters of military commander Khalifa Haftar, a key figure in the revolution 5 years ago, comes despite fears over ISIL's expanded presence in Libya, exploiting the security vacuum left when Colonel Gaddafi was toppled. The US has warned that ISIL's trying to attract more foreign fighters to Libya. A US airstrike hit a suspected training camp last week, and Washington says it won't hesitate to act in the face of other threats. Benghazi's seen some of the worst violence in the conflict that's plagued Libya. The country has two rival administrations, though plans for a future unity government are starting to take shape.
A Swedish teenager rescued from ISIL extremists in Iraq says she was duped into going there by her boyfriend. Kurdish special forces recovered the 16-year-old in northern Iraq, where she's due to be handed over to the Swedish authorities. The girl told a Kurdish TV station that she met her boyfriend in Sweden 2 years ago after dropping out of school.
First we was good together, but then he started to look at the ISIS videos and started to speak about them and stuff like that. And I don't know anything about Islam or ISIS or something, so I didn't know what he meant, you know. And then he said he wanted to go to ISIS, and I said to him, okay, no problem, because I didn't know what ISIS mean, what Islam is, and nothing.
After crossing from Turkey into Iraq, ISIL militants put the couple up in a house in Mosul with no electricity or running water. It was a really hard life, the girl said. Eventually, I phoned my mum saying I want to go home.
He's done it again. Donald Trump has coasted to victory in the Nevada caucuses. Some 20 percentage points ahead of the pack, the Republican frontrunner poured scorn on President Obama's plans to close Guantanamo Bay.
We're going to keep, as you know, Gitmo, we're keeping that open, and we're going to load it up with bad dudes. We're going to load it up with a lot of bad dudes out there. We're going to have our borders nice and strong. We're going to build the wall, you know that. Going to build the wall. And I have a lot of respect for Mexico, and you just heard we won Hispanics, but let me tell you, Mexico is going to pay for the wall, right?
Trump's third consecutive win is a setback to Marco Rubio's hopes of mounting an upset following the withdrawal of Jeb Bush from the race. The Florida senator narrowly beat Texas Senator Ted Cruz in Nevada. But all eyes now are on March the 1st and Super Tuesday, when a whole host of states will make their choice. If Cruz or Rubio fail to make a breakthrough then, many will see Trump's bid to become the Republicans' candidate in November's U.S. presidential election as unstoppable. The southern United States, bringing death and destruction to Louisiana and Mississippi. At least 3 people were killed and more than 30 others injured as the storms destroyed dozens of homes and businesses. Hardest hit in Louisiana was a trailer park that was almost entirely demolished. 2 people were confirmed dead there, and with reports of others unaccounted for, rescue crews combed through debris searching for anyone who might have been trapped. Another person died in Mississippi when a mobile home there was destroyed. As many counted the costs, schools and government offices in both states cancelled classes or closed early. And the warning is that this isn't over yet, with Florida, Alabama and Georgia either already hit or expected to face the full wrath of these tornadoes.
Apple's battle with the US authorities over encryption will likely boost efforts by companies to make devices more secure against government intrusion, according to some industry experts. The company's refusal to help the FBI access the mobile phone of a gunman who took part in the San Bernardino killings brought a number of small rallies at Apple stores in support of its stance. Last week, the FBI won a court order requiring Apple engineers to help extract data from the phone. The FBI's director has said encryption provides a safe haven for terrorists. If Apple loses the case, it's thought it could create a legal precedent. The company claims the FBI is seeking access to at least a dozen iPhones in various cases.